Assalamualaikum and hi, my name is Abdul Mutalib bin Abu Bakar Sidik and I will assume for the question 1 for the mini project. Question 1. Beauty Neighborhood is a cosmetic company which produces and sells cream lipstick. On average, they are able to sell 950 units of lipstick per annum at a selling price of Rm200 per unit. The following data is related to this product. Variable cost per unit, the direct material is Rm30, direct labor Rm10, production overhead is 15, and selling overhead is 20. So the total of variable cost is Rm75. For the annual fixed cost, the production overhead is 53,200, general and administration is 22,050, and selling and distribution is 16,000. So the total of fixed cost is 91,250. For the question A, first they are asking to find the break-even point in unit and value. Second, margin of safety in unit and value. Third, net profit earned by the company. So to find the BEP unit, the formula is fixed cost divided by the contribution margin. So the fixed cost is 91,250 and the contribution margin is selling price 200 ringgit minus with the variable cost 75. So we will get 730 units for the BEP unit. For the BEP value, the formula is BEP unit times with selling price per unit. So the BEP unit is 730 times with the selling price per unit Rm200. So we will get Rm 146,000. Next, the second one is to find margin safety unit. The formula is total budget or actual sales minus with BEP unit. So the actual sale or total budget is 950 unit minus with BEP unit is 730. So we will get 220 unit. For the margin safety value, the formula is margin of safety unit times with selling price per unit. So the margin safety unit is 220 times with 200 for the selling price per unit. So we will get for Rm 44,000. Next, the third one is we have to find the net profit. So the formula is in bracket selling price per unit times with sales unit minus with in bracket variable cost per unit times with sales unit and minus with fixed cost. So in bracket 200 times with 950 minus with in bracket 75 times with 950 and minus with fixed cost. So we will get 190,000 minus with 71,250 minus with 91,250. And for the net profit, we will get Rm 27,500. For the question B, they are asking to calculate the number that is needed to be produced and sold by the company. It is desired profit to set to be Rm 135,000 for the year. So we will use the formula target sales volume. The formula is fixed cost plus with net profit divided by the selling price per unit minus with variable cost per unit. So the fixed cost is 91,250 plus with the new net profit 135,000 divided by the selling price per unit Rm200 minus with variable cost Rm75. So 226,250 divided by 125. So the answer we will get 1,810 units for the new units. For question C, assume that if the company increase their annual fixed cost and total variable cost by 10% and 50% respectively, an increase in sales level is expected to be 1,100 units. Calculate the new net profit that the company will earn if these changes are met. To find net profit, we will use the formula net profit. In bracket selling price per unit times with sales unit minus with in bracket variable cost per unit times with sales unit and minus with the fixed cost. So in bracket 200 times with 1100 unit minus with in bracket 86.25 times with 1100 unit and minus with 100,375. So 220,000 minus with 94,875 minus with 100,375. So we will get the new net profit is RM 24,750. So the last question for the question A. The management of Beautician Berhad decide to use quality material in the manufacturing of their product, which will increase the material cost by RM 15 ringgit per unit and transportation cost RM 4,000. The manager predicts that an increase in this cost will lead to better product quality, for which it helps to increase sales to 1,600 units should the change be made by the company. So first we have to find the new direct material, which RM 30 ringgit plus with RM 15 ringgit. So we will get the new direct material is RM 45. For the new variable cost, RM 45 plus with RM 10 ringgit plus with RM 15 ringgit and plus with RM 20 ringgit. So we will get the new variable cost is RM 19 ringgit. For the new selling price and distribution, RM 22,050 plus with RM 4,000, and we will get the new selling and distribution is RM 26,050. For the new fixed cost, RM 53,200 plus with RM 26,050 plus with RM 16,000. So we will get the new fixed cost is RM 95,250. For the worksheet that we do to find the new direct material, new variable cost and new selling price and distribution and new fixed cost, you can see the in the table worksheet that we do to find the new one. So should the company make a change? Yes, the changes should be made by the company as it will increase the company profit. Thank you. That's all for me.
Assalamualaikum. Hi, my name is Izzati Azzahra Azmi. So in this video, I'll be explaining about question number 2 regarding Puncak Berhad. A little bit introduction before I proceed with my video explanation. I'll be explain on how I get the answer regarding each of the question in the question number 2. So without further ado, let's get started. So before I explain on how I answer the question number 2, I've noticed that there is some information in the question are not given, such as like the selling price per unit and also the fixed cost. It only given the fixed overhead and also the sales unit and sales of for the year. So based on the information that based on the information given in the question, I calculate for the selling price per unit, which the formula for selling price per unit is sales for the year divided by the sales unit, which the sales of the year is 500,000 ringgit divided by 5,000 units, and the selling price per unit is 100 ringgit. While the fixed cost, the formula for the fixed cost is total cost of production minus in bracket variable cost per unit times with number of units. So for the total cost of production is in bracket 70 ringgit times with 5,000. So 70 ringgit, where do I get the 70 ringgit is I total up every production given in the question, which direct material is 40 ringgit plus with direct labor 10 ringgit plus with variable overhead 10 ringgit and fixed overhead 10 ringgit. So I've total everything So I get 70 ringgit. 70 ringgit times it 5,000, which 5,000 is the sales unit. So for the variable cost per unit is 60 ringgit. And where do I get the 60 ringgit is the total of direct material 40 ringgit, direct labor 10 ringgit, and also variable overhead 10 ringgit. I times it 5,000 units, as it's 5,000 unit is the sales and also variable, the number of unit. So when I total up everything, I calculate everything. So the fixed cost for this question is 50,000 ringgit. So I proceed for the first question, A, which calculate the break-even point in units and value. So the break-even point in units, the formula is fixed cost divided by contribution margin, which the contribution margin is selling price minus the variable cost. Selling price per unit minus the variable cost per unit, I'm sorry. So the fixed cost is 50,000 ringgit and the contribution margin is 100 minus with 60. So after I divide it, I get 1,250 units. That's for break-even point in units. For the break-even point in value, the formula is break-even point units times its selling price per unit. So the break-even point in unit is 1,250, and the selling price per unit is 100. So the total of break-even point in value is 125,000 ringgit. So the next question is about calculate the margin of safety in units and value. So margin of safety in unit is actually total budgeted or actual sales minus with break-even point units. No. So the margin of safety is the differences between total budgeted or actual sales with break-even point in units. So the total budgeted or actual sales for this question is 5,000, and the break-even point is 1,250. So when I minus, and I will get 3,750 units. That's for margin of safety in units. While margin of safety in value, the formula is margin of safety unit times its selling price per unit, which 3,750 is the margin of safety times with 100 ringgit, which is the selling price per unit, and the total for margin of safety is 375,000 ringgit. I'll proceed for C. Question C asks for determine the net profit earned by the company. So the net profit formula is selling price minus with variable cost and minus with fixed cost. For the extension, formula is sales unit minus sales unit times with selling price per unit minus with variable cost times with variable cost per unit and minus with fixed cost. So the sales price is 500,000 minus with variable cost is 60 ringgit times with 5,000 minus with the fixed cost 50,000 ringgit. When I calculate 500,000 minus 300,000 minus with 50,000 ringgit, the total net profit is 150,000 ringgit. Next, for question D, the question is like this. If the direct material cost increase by 10% and Puncak Berhad would like to maintain its annual profit, calculate 1. Number of units to be sold, assuming other information remain unchanged. And 2. New selling price per unit for Puncak Berhad, assuming the company will sell 5,000 units. So in question D, there is 2 sub-questions. So before I calculate for the first question in D, I made the I calculate the information given, which there is new direct material There is cost for direct material. There is new cost for direct material, which the existing direct material is 40 ringgit, increased by 10%, which 40 ringgit times with 110%, and the new direct material cost is 44 ringgit. So sorry, the new variable cost is 44 ringgit plus with 10 ringgit and for direct labor, and another 10 ringgit for variable overhead. So the new variable cost is 64 ringgit. So in question D1, it requires us to find the number of units to be sold. So when the question asks for the number of units to be sold, I use the formula of target sales volume, which target sales volume is fixed cost plus with net profit divided by selling price per unit minus with variable cost per unit, or in other words, divided by contribution margin. So the fixed cost here is 50,000 ringgit, which it remain the same, and the net profit is 150 ringgit, which it remain the same also. Selling price per unit is 100 ringgit, while the variable cost per unit using the new data, which is 64 ringgit. After I calculate it, the target sales volume is 5,555 units. So next, I'll proceed with second question in D, which new selling price per unit for Puncak Berhad, assuming the company will sell 5,000 units. So the information that I get is the selling price is changed, which the units for the sales have changed to 5,555 units. So new selling price is 500,000 ringgit, which I use the original data divided by 5,555 units, and the new selling price is 90 ringgit and 1 cent. For the new sales, 90 ringgit and 1 cent times with 5,000 units, which it required in the question, and the new sales for question D is 450,000 and 450,050 ringgit. 450,050 ringgit. So I'll proceed with last question, E, which is the question asks to determine the new break-even point in units and value if Puncak Berhad increases selling price by 20% and the total fixed overhead by 10,000. So the information given here is that the selling price increases by 20%. So the new selling price is I use the selling price data from question D, which 450,050 ringgit times with 120%, and the new selling price is 540 ringgit and 540,060 ringgit. So the selling price per unit is 540,060 ringgit divided by 5,000 units, and the new selling price per unit is 108.01 ringgit Malaysia. For the new fixed cost, it given here that the total fixed overhead is 10,000 ringgit. So new fixed cost is 50,000 ringgit from the original data plus with 10,000 ringgit that given for total fixed overhead, and the new fixed cost is 60,000 ringgit. So I calculate the break-even point in unit, which fixed cost divided by contribution margin, 60,000 ringgit divided with 108.01 minus with 64 ringgit, and the break-even point unit is 1,363 units. For break-even point in value, break-even point units times with selling price per unit. So the break-even point per unit is 1,363 times with selling price per unit. The new data is 108.01, and the break-even point in value is 147 and 270 ringgit and 63 cents.